In October 2008, a unique protest movement launched on the streets of London. It was called the Atheist Bus Campaign, and it plastered a specific message across the city's public transit. There's probably no God. Now stop worrying and enjoy your life. That slogan captures a dominant sentiment in modern culture. For many, walking away from the concept of absolute truth feels like a relief. Without a creator, there is no ultimate accountability, and the burden of divine expectation is lifted. This creates the central paradox of our time. We live in an era where holding a Bible requires zero effort. You can download dozens of translations to a phone in seconds. Yet genuine belief and adherence to those biblical principles have reached their lowest point in generations. The ancient prophet Amos predicted this scenario. He warned that God would send a severe famine on the land, not a lack of physical food or even a lack of available Bibles, but a famine of hearing the words of the Lord. Biblical hearing describes a specific posture, a careful, focused attention that results in obedience. In fact, the underlying Hebrew word is often translated directly as obey. Society is starving to death spiritually, but because people are constantly stuffing their minds with cultural junk food, the famine goes unnoticed. The author G.K. Chesterton diagnosed this cultural symptom perfectly. He observed that when people stop believing in God, they don't believe in nothing, they believe in anything. Humans are built with an innate spiritual capacity. We have a mental void that will be filled by something to provide meaning. A starving person will eat whatever is at hand, even if it is slow poison. Without divine instruction, alternative belief systems rush in. Some adopt materialism.
Others find meaning in gang culture, eco-religions, or intense celebrity worship. The Apostle Paul details the mechanism behind this in the letters to the Romans and the Thessalonians. When people suppress the truth to avoid accountability, God does not argue with them. He doesn't force his reality onto a public that rejects it. Instead, he gives them over to a debased mind. He hands them the spiritual deafness and the delusion they requested. The most severe curse God can inflict on a society is answering its demand to be left alone in the dark. This pattern of trading truth for convenience played out thousands of years ago in the ancient northern kingdom of Israel. Shortly after the nation split, the northern king Jeroboam faced a political crisis. The temple was located south in Jerusalem. He feared that if his citizens traveled south to worship, they would eventually reunite with his rivals. To solve this, he invented a convenient counterfeit religion. He set up golden calves and offered his people local worship centers, telling them it was too much work to travel to Jerusalem. He gave them an alternative so they wouldn't have to humble themselves. Looking at this map, we see Amos's prophecy. A malnourished people wander from sea to sea, running north to east, seeking God's word. They look west, north, east. The only direction they refuse to look is south, where the true temple and actual truth reside. They wanted spiritual truth, but only on their own comfortable terms. They refused to look where it required submission. The antidote to this famine is hidden within the instructions for the Feast of Unleavened Bread, an annual festival observed by Jesus and kept by the early church after his death. In the New Testament, leaven or yeast represents sin, hypocrisy, and the corrupting influence of false doctrine. A tiny amount slowly infects the entire batch of dough. Paul contrasts this with unleavened bread, which symbolizes sincerity and truth. Ultimately, that pure bread represents Jesus Christ himself. This symbolism reveals the nature of the famine. Since God's word is the source of truth, and unleavened bread represents that truth, a society that loses the ability to hear has effectively run out of the bread required to survive. To survive, the biblical instructions demand two actions. The first is vigilance. We must identify and remove leaven, those worldly philosophies that act as a slow poison to the mind. But removing the bad is not enough. We must replace it by ingesting the unleavened bread of God's truth every single day. If we fail to value the truth, God grants our wish and removes our ability to hear it. But if we prioritize consuming his word, he will sustain us through the famine.